If you're a homemaker who experiences overwhelm and overstimulation in your homemaking, then today's video is for you. Hi homemakers, my name is Kiri with the Transformed Homemakers Society, and my mission is to help homemakers go from overstimulation and chronic stress to a peaceful and thriving home so that they can serve their families and the Lord. Over the years, I've had my own major transformation in my homemaking, going from overstimulated, highly sensitive, and chronically stressed to cool, calm, collected, and unbelievably fulfilled in my role. Now I help other homemakers have their own transformations. If you're interested in working with me, then please check out my free workshop in the link down below. So I have a fun video today. Well, I think it's fun. I hope you do too. In this video, I'm going to talk about how my homemaking and life has changed as a result of rewiring my brain for Christ. I've been talking a lot about this on my channel lately, and I want to give you a little testimony of how this has changed my life. So to do this, I decided to just take you through the journal that I've been keeping where I write down all my wins. I'm just going to take you through the first month or so of my healing journey because that's when I experienced the most profound and frequent wins. And also, I don't want to take up all your time today. So lots of people wonder how long it takes them to heal their impaired limbic system, and the answer really varies, honestly, drastically. However, most people do experience some wins right off the bat, like within the first week. The degree of the win, though, is different for everyone. For some, these are just small wins, and for others, they're quite profound. I am one of the lucky ones, and I had profound wins right off the bat. Praise the Lord. So here we go. The first few points I'm going to share happened within the first 6 days of starting brain retraining. And then as I go through the wins, I'll tell you how far into my journey I was when I experienced this. And then also one caveat is as I go through these wins, then you're obviously going to know like what I was going through, like the misery that I was going through, because you're going to be like, wow, so if that was a win, then the opposite of that is what she was living out. And that's not the point of this video. I don't want to focus on that. I want the focus really to be on how that changed through rewiring my brain for Christ. So this isn't meant to be a, poor me video or look how horrible my life was. Because the Lord has done a lot of work to renew my mind. And so I am blessed. I'm very blessed. Okay, so let's get into it. I noticed the very first thing I noticed, again, this is within 6 days, my body relaxing in areas that I didn't even realize I was holding tension. Just a general relaxed feeling. And I didn't even realize I had so much pent up tension, because when you're so tense for so long, you forget what it feels like to be relaxed. And then until it happens and you finally get the relief, you're like, oh, so this is what being relaxed feels like. So this is what I'm supposed to feel like. Okay, number 2 is I was less aggressive and combative, just in general. And I had just a more, I would say, approachable demeanor. Third is my movements were naturally less rushed and frantic. I used to always just whip around the house, getting everything done so quickly and moving so frantically. And I thought it was just because I had so much to do. And my husband and I would even joke about it. But really, it was because my body was in a state of fight or flight. And it learned to move in that way for a reason. Like it had adapted that way. Okay, number 4 is in general, my demeanor was just more relaxed and joyful. 5, speaking of joy, I was actually feeling true joy again, something that I really hadn't felt in a long time. 6 is specifically, I was finding more joy in my children. I was noticing all the cute little things that they did, and I was actually experiencing my children as blessings. 7, I was less anxious over menial things. 8, I had tons more energy. I went from needing to nap myself during every single one of my children's naps for their full 2-hour nap, to being productive, working on projects, hobbies, and other things. And I loved this because it actually felt like a break for me when the kids napped. When I spent the whole 2 hours sleeping, I'd wake up and then instantly have to get back into the day. But when I actually got to work on something that was like soul giving, it really felt like I had a break and like me time. Guys, this is all just within 6 days of brain retraining and calming my nervous system. The Lord is so, so good. Okay, so continuing on with 6 days in. Number 9, I began to see life more positively, and I had a propensity to positivity versus negativity. If something negative did happen, I noticed my brain just instantly finding the positives about that thing. Number 10 is my days stopped feeling like such drudgery. I remember months prior texting my friend telling her that it felt like I was treading through molasses just to get through every single day. And this wasn't just a short season. Everyone has seasons like that, right? We're talking years of this progressively getting worse and worse and worse. And I just noticed that the trajectory was going the wrong way. So I remember talking also to my mentor, telling her how much this is so horrible. This is going to just make me seem like a terrible person. And so give me grace for this because, this is pretty vulnerable. But you also have to understand, like, my body was in a state of chronic fight or flight, and I was just surviving, okay? So I was talking to my mentor, and I remember telling her how much I hated my role as a mother, and I was feeling duped by the whole gig and how hard everything was. I always wanted to be a mother, always. I've always wanted to be a mother, and I felt duped. I was just angry about how hard everything was, and now I realize that it was never meant to be that hard. Yes, motherhood is of course hard, and there are some seasons where it just totally drops us to our knees, but not for an extended period of time like I had experienced. It shouldn't be like that. So around 6 days in, I felt less like that. All right. Next, we're moving on to past 6 days. Now we're 8 days into my brain retraining work, and my husband was noticing. He said that I seemed, quote, normal again. Like, you aren't always freaking out. And since he was noticing such a change, he was so supportive of what I was doing. He would happily give me quiet alone time, and he would take the kids so that I could do what I needed to do my brain retraining work. And not that he didn't do that before, because I am so blessed to have such an involved husband, but he was gladly giving me this time. And honestly, he was almost more protective of this time than even I was, which just goes to show how much it was affecting him too. All right. Number 12, around 8 days in as well, I could drink coffee again. And I actually felt good after drinking coffee again. My body began not tolerating coffee. And it just like totally messed up my hormones and my blood sugar. And it was so sad because I love coffee. It's like my favorite morning beverage. I genuinely love coffee and it brings me so much joy. So it was so sad. But I was now able to drink coffee again without it affecting my mood. And that's one of the things about brain rewiring and healing your limbic system dysfunction, is that you're able to eat and drink things that you previously weren't able to do because now your body's able to tolerate it. It just in general gives you more food freedom. All right, 13, 12 days in, my hair started growing back at an astonishing rate. I was losing hair by the droves, and now I could actually run my fingers through my hair and pull out like 1 or maybe 2 hairs. But before, if I did that, I would pull out literal clumps of hair. I also noticed all the little baby hairs growing around my head, which was just a sign of new hair growth. So that was really cool. 12 days in. 14 days in, I noticed that if someone snapped at me or was rude in any way, that I didn't have this gut reaction to just fire right back. 16 days in, I noticed my resiliency increasing. I was able to bounce back more quickly if something bad happened, whereas before, something like dropping a smoothie on the floor would have totally broken me. And as irritating as something like that can be, we should be able to bounce back from something like that fairly quickly without it ruining our whole day. 18 days in, I was recognizing my negative thinking patterns, and I was actually able to stop them in their tracks and reverse my thinking. I'll tell you, as a Christian, I knew it's important to renew my mind. So I would always try so hard to reverse negative thinking patterns, but it felt so impossible until I started the work of retraining my brain and rewiring my brain and calming down my nervous system. Then it honestly just came more naturally to be able to do that. 23 days in, I noticed my brain retraining sessions becoming more and more productive and beneficial for healing. So if you're doing this work yourself, you know how sometimes it can feel like you're just going through the motions, but then you reach this tipping point in your healing journey, at several stages through your healing journey, and in the process where you just feel like you catch your stride and you feel so productive and it feels so healing. So yeah, that was fun. 27 days in, I had a day where I was feeling symptomatic in some way and I was able to maintain my joy despite the discomfort. 28 days in, things weren't annoying me as much. I was constantly annoyed, you guys, at everything. All the time, just annoyed. And so yeah, 28 days in, that lessened within the first month. 29 days in, I found myself being more articulate and clear-headed. I had so much brain fog and it felt like I had lost who I was before. I used to be very intelligent and articulate. Speaking of being articulate, and I had just totally lost that. And so that started coming back at 29 days. 30 days in, I noticed that I had higher highs and higher lows, meaning my good days were even better than my good days before, and my bad days just weren't as bad as the bad days that I had before. Again, that goes back to the resiliency. I was just able to bounce back. Whereas before, a bad day, I'd drop a smoothie on the floor and I'd be flustered from that and it would set my, fight or flight response off. My body would go into a state of panic and then it would spiral all day long after that. So that wasn't happening. I was able to bounce back. And part of that is that I was weaving pockets of regulation throughout my day by doing my brain retraining sessions. 31 days in, I was less judgmental of people, even just strangers on the road. I had so much more empathy and I started seeing just the good in people more. Around this time, I also noticed that I wasn't as sensitive to touch. Also, not as sensitive to pain. I used to be so very sensitive. And with young toddlers, that's tough because they're constantly jumping on you and accidentally hurting you because they just don't have, good body awareness. So homemaking can really be a dangerous job. So I wasn't as fragile of a mommy. I was able to actually be rough and tumble with the kids, not only because I had more energy, but also because I was less fragile. I was also less hyper vigilant. Of course, vigilant. I'm a mom, but not hyper vigilant. If you experience the chronic stress response, then you may be aware of how hyper vigilant you are, and it can be exhausting to go through your day like this. So that lessened around this time too. 32 days in, I had actually decided to wake my children up early from bed one morning so that we could go on an early morning walk as a family. Guys, I never would have done this before. I never would have sacrificed rest time to wake the kids up early because I was just barely surviving. Around this time, I also noticed myself clenching my jaw less and grinding my teeth less at night. I would have more days where I would wake up in the morning and my jaw wouldn't hurt. 36 days in, I wrote, okay, this is kind of embarrassing. but it's, it's important. 36 days in, I wrote down that I clipped my toenails without getting an infection. But yeah, one of my symptoms was frequent infections, all kinds and all over my body all the time. At one point, and actually this has happened several times, I had 3 infection areas at the same time. And it actually seemed like that happened frequently where my infections would come in 3s. I don't know what that was all about, but yeah, one of the things that would give me an infection was clipping my toenails short. So I would always have to clip them in this very specific way where I wouldn't get an infection. But around this time, I had tested it out doing the way that I prefer, and praise God, no infection. Such a weird one to end with. But there you have it, a little over a month, and that's how my life had already changed. Most of these wins had continued and not really come back. Of course, healing is not linear, so some of them did come and go as I went throughout, my healing journey. But that's totally to be expected. But overall, any triggers and symptoms that I did experience after this first month were not as strong and didn't last as long. So I'll say it again, I'm one of the lucky ones who noticed so many wins right off the bat, but the process is different for everyone. I do think though that most people going through a healing journey through brain retraining do have significant wins within the first month or so. So since I've had such a profound transformation in my own homemaking, I created a workshop with the exact framework that I followed to make my transformation. It's my 5-step framework for overwhelmed and overworked homemakers. Just click the link in the description below to sign up for your spot. So I hope this video was helpful for you to understand what the potentials are for your own homemaking if you experience some of the things that I had experienced before. Thank you so much for watching.